Well, any second now. Can we see the bottom of that? Yeah, okay. Time, sort of. Anyway, it's a long minute. Here we go. All right. Hi. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Flowers. And this will be a 4-week online intensive where I will be going through how to go about painting flowers. What do you think about? How do you set things up? How to go about it. So this first session, I'm going to be drawing, and because I think it's simpler to look at some of the things we need to set up when we're painting. Those aspects are actually drawing aspects, the placement, the forms. So I'm going to concentrate on that today, and then next week we'll be doing it again, but in black and white. It'll be a different setup. Unfortunately, I really like this one. It's a real beauty. Anyway, I want to paint it, you know. But we're going to draw today, and next week we're black and white, and then we'll have 2 weeks of color. So I'll try to talk through some of the way I think about setting up the painting. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I will be looking. We have some different points of view. So let's see. I'm going to show you what we've got here. That's this. Is that this one? Yeah, here we have this point of view, which is over from the side. Although I'm not sure you're able to see it unless I don't know that you guys are going to be able to ping it yourself and place it. And then we have another point of view, which is, it's okay. It's this one, I think. We have that one, which isn't, that's not so great. And then we'll go back up to, if I can find, where am I? Where's the main one? This guy. Is that right? Yeah. No. Different. That's this guy. I have too many cameras. Wait a minute. There we go. Hello, back. Okay. So, well, we got a bunch of chats. Hey, hello. Nice, great. Lots of hellos. That's sweet. So, the chat go back. Out, close, X. They did change things a little. Okay. So, when we are setting up, some very basic things become very important as the painting goes on and allow us to go more directly to the flowers. Like, we want to get to the flowers. I want to paint the flowers. We need to think about the vase, actually, and the placement of the vase and the placement of the flowers in the rectangle. That is, we need to think about the composition and the structure, the architecture of the vase. So that is what I'm going to be focusing on today in the beginning as we set up this drawing of this vase of flowers. Now, before we do that, I'd like to just go through, show you a few examples of what I'm talking about. This is from Edward Manet. Near the end of his life, he did these small flower paintings that are just spectacular. And we'll look at a few of those. I'm going to do a screen share now. Where did you go? Oh, brother. Really? Here. Come on. There we go. Now, I'm going to stop the share and try that again because I think, there we go. Oh, isn't that interesting? Share this. Okay, and get a bigger view. There we go. You see? Okay, so you can see that it's very particular if this is the bottom of the rectangle where Manet is placing his vase in relation to this side of the rectangle down here, this side of the vase in relation to here, this side in relation to here. These spaces become very important. The way the, what flower is this? Someone knows. The way this flower comes right up near the edge. All of these little spaces and the placement in relation to the background and the rectangle become very important. Also, what becomes very important, in order for these flowers to be here, we have to have the architecture of this vase be believable. Here's another one. Again, the placement in relation to the four sides of the rectangle. Where is this? Where are the flowers in the vase in relation to the four sides? The importance of this shadow, where it ends, the implication of the table ending and the background beginning sort of in here, right there. The tone in relation to the vase. All of these things become crucial in order to have a visual container for the flowers. So here we've this extreme dark background to the light of the table, this diagonal of the tulip, and then ending down here at the bottom. The placement of these in relation to the rectangle, the size of the format. This rectangle is much more elongated, right? It's much taller, more vertical. So you want to pick the, find a proportion that's going to fit your visual idea, fit what's going on in the bouquet. Here's another, right? Again, very vertical, but here we don't have that diagonal of the tulip on the bottom. We have the bottom of the vase very close to the bottom of the rectangle, and it's at a slight angle. It's going up slightly, and that angle continues with that shadow. That becomes very important. So, and then we have this sort of going through this way as a kind of a counterbalance. And then we have the frontality of this. So all these things, they're subtle, but they become very meaningful. How close this leaf is to the edge of the rectangle, this leaf to the edge, this space. And again, the architecture of the vase. Here again, we have the very dark to the very light. Different vase, beautiful vase. It becomes very important in the way it's holding. The leaves. So all of this becomes, these are important considerations as we set up our image so that we can actually get to those flowers. Okay. So I'll start in. I'm just drawing with a drawing pencil. It's a B. I like B, HB, 2B. sharpener, eraser. Okay, coffee, very important. So let's see. Now, pencil doesn't necessarily show up the best on a Zoom feed. Hopefully you'll see this. I'd rather work in the graphite than for this than charcoal, but we might end up going to charcoal, we'll see. So now this sheet of paper comes 22 inches by 30 inches. That's how they make it. But I don't want 22 by 30. I want 22 by 26 or 26 by 22. So I just tore it down. I just cropped it so that I've got a proportion that it fits more my visual relationship to the image. It's a little more square. That's me, right? So you all, think about, how do you want to set it up? What is this? What kind of rectangle would really work for this? And then, where do I want? Where's the sort of the line at the back of the table? Where does the vase come in? The bottom of the vase. So where am I placing all of this in relation to this whole rectangle? You all see? I don't know if you can see. Also, when I set this up, when I set up my bouquet, right, it's like, do I want one tone color for the tabletop? Do I want a different one for the wall behind? I picked up some white roses. Well, do I want a dark background? Do I want a light background? What, right? Of course, these are your considerations. When you go into the market and you pick up your flowers, and it's nice to have a nice selection of things or your garden, if you're so blessed and you have a nice garden. And then, as you set up your bouquet, that's a whole thing, right? Flower arrangement. I'm no expert on that at all, but, it becomes important. The feel, the height, the relation to the vase, all these things. It's like setting up your still life, or like, the pose of your model, of course, right? And I've got sort of seeing where's the whole kind of shape of this. So I'm looking for the geometry right now. The placement of the larger forms of, here's the white carnation, here's the light cream rose, here's that, I don't know, what is a hydrangea? No. Yeah? I don't know. I'm terrible at all that. I don't know names of things. And if I do know them, I forget them, so it doesn't matter. In the long run. Actually, in the long run, not much. It really matters, I suppose. Here's another white rose. So I'm laying things in. I'm going rather quickly, but there's no rush. You just kind of feel through, and you want to see where things are in relation to other things, and find the real placement, find the real shapes. One of the things that becomes important as we work is the specificity of the form. So we need to have a convincing vase. The architecture of the vase becomes very important, but also the specificity of the flowers, the shapes of the petals. There can be a tendency to kind of generalize. Oh, there's so much information. but then it looks generalized and it doesn't feel real. So it takes attention to the particulars of this flower, this petal. And we'll go back and look at that with Manet. We'll look at Van Gogh. What is he doing with those sunflowers? It's spectacular. And each petal is very specific. You know, to that extent, again, you know, I've said this in some of the other courses. The basic skill of drawing, of geometry, of being able to see the angles, the proportions, it's crucial for everything else that we do. It makes everything else more available so that we can be more fluid as we work, which is what we want to do, right? It's like, particularly when we're painting flowers, we want them to live. You know, there's a, you know, to a great extent, you know, the shapes of the flowers are more forgiving than, say, a figure. You know, the figure is so demanding that way. You know, we get the proportion of the head to the rest of the body off, or the eyes are too big, or right. So we have more leeway here for sure, but still we want a specificity of form so that we can really believe in all of this. I think this might be too high. Let's see, maybe this goes down lower. Let's see. Here. Let's see, there's some questions here. Lilac? Yeah, maybe lilac. I don't know. Annabelle Hydron. Yeah, that's a dark green, actually. Does it look black back there? I guess maybe it does. It's a green. Yeah, that is pretty great. Where the water line is also another consideration. If it's transparent, I find it's like, ooh, do I want the water line to be exactly where the tabletop meets the wall, or a little higher, a little lower? I mean, and you know, it changes. Probably not within the span that we're working to right now, but you know, but if I'm painting this and I've got a couple of days, it'll change. Do I want a transparent vase? Do I want an opaque vase? What color, right? I mean, all of that. It really makes a difference. I went to the fabric store and got a whole bunch of fabrics, different colors, so that I can fool around and play depending on what my flower colors are. It's like, oh, what would be good with that, right? I got this great, like a nice deep watermelon pink. That's just, it's a beauty. So how does this curve of the vase work? How do I land? What's the base here? What is it doing? How does it sit? This becomes crucial. How this vase sits right here is hugely important, because it's holding all of the image in a real sense. and the space underneath that from the base to the edge becomes very important. Also, it doesn't necessarily have to be right in the middle, right? I tend to do that with my flowers. I like that. But, and then, you know, sometimes they'll be like, you know, like stuff like this. You know, you throw some of this down, you know, can you see? I don't know if you can. Yeah, right? You guys got that, those little petals. And it changes the dynamic completely. I mean, really. And it's like, ooh. And you have like this whole thing doing that, if you want to, or whatever. Or it could be like, feels a little too self-conscious. Oh, that was charcoal, I think, on there. Ah, not good. Also, I like to be right in front of the thing. I'm a little to the side as I'm working. I'm going to need to, there. Can you see? Yeah. I like to be like straight in front. But again, it's like you figure out like your way of working it. That becomes really important. So I'm, you know, like certain things I'm describing are, you know, like foundational, and other things are like, well, how do you want to do it? And the water line, how does it come up against the edge here? And it's, you know, line quality when we're drawing becomes very important, so that, you know, this is a harder edge of the vase, and the water is going to be a softer edge, of course. And getting that variety of edge quality, the eraser becomes an important tool. Not only, it's like, oh, that's in the wrong place, I got to erase it, but the eraser becomes a drawing tool, right? To get the right edge quality, the right feel, the form. So I'm really looking at the specificity of the angles of the stems inside and where they touch, and their edges. Are they hard? Are they soft? You know, all of that. So that I'm right. It's like curious. It's like, oh, what's going on there? It's beautiful. So I'm exploring up, and then I'm going to go over, and I'm exploring the structure of all this. I'm exploring the structure of how do these all fit together, all these parts. What are the shapes, and how do the shapes come up against other shapes? And so, we know this, but I'm just going to say it again. In a sense, I'm not painting flowers. I end up painting shapes, or I'm drawing shapes right now, and then I'm drawing form, and I'm painting tones of shapes, right? You leave the names of things, you leave the ideas of things, and we go directly into our visual perception of what's in front of us, and sort of just go in there and explore it, right? So, the emphasis goes on to exploration, investigation. What is this? This is delightful, what I'm looking at. Wow. So less of an emphasis on trying to get it to look right, although of course we want it because it's so alive, it's so beautiful. But try to not worry that, and just kind of groove on, like, wow, how's this work? Keep that open. God, it's really beautiful. I'd like to paint it. This feels like I'm crowded in here. I'm not. Maybe I didn't set up the proportions right. Could be. Maybe this is. One nice thing also, one of the things I'm doing is I'm slowing down I do it also for myself. Sometimes I just draw, but I'm also separating out some of the formal inquiry, some of the formal investigation. So what we're doing now is just the geometry, composition with the geometry, and so that, and that doesn't go away when we go to paint, of course. But it helps to sort of, as we're working, just allow ourselves to kind of just groove on that. That's nice. I enjoy just drawing. It's formally simpler, and we tend to make it less of a big deal in our minds, in our noggin. So to that extent, it's sort of like we get to just have a little more fun without worrying, whether it's going to come out okay or not. That kind of gets in the way of that mindset. Chats. Yeah, definitely thrift stores. Cheap basis, absolutely. Nibbled, but it's not natural daylight. It's too dark right now. Maybe it'll get better. I've got lights up and about. Do a very light general shapers. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. My surface. Oh, this This is just Stonehenge paper. It's a decent paper without being too expensive. You know, I mean, it's Arch or Fabriano, or I mean, Reeves would be great for sure. But you know, you could get them for a couple of bucks, maybe $2.50 a sheet if you get them in like a pack of 25 or something. Anyway, yeah, Stonehenge. It's I think this is natural white or something is the color. Also, you know, my tendency is I'm building from, in a way, I'm building from here. I'm building up, I'm building out. It's like sort of where the bouquet is being held. I don't know. It's just what I do. I'm not sure there's a real point to that. So, well, there is literally a point here to it. But I mean, you know, I think there are all kinds of ways of structuring the setup. I tend to go somewhere and then build from there and go back and then build out from it again. Not always, but for this I am. You see it at the side? Also, one of the things maybe you're noticing, as I'm looking for things, I'm coming at like I'm looking this way and then I'm coming that way. So I'm trying to find different ways of coming to a situation in order to get all the shapes to lock in together. And this is, you know, it's a complex bouquet. There's a lot going on there. You know, you may want to start out if you know, just a few flowers. I mean, I love doing that too. I mean, and then there's this real delicacy. Let's see. You know, and you can also see I'm setting up the overall shaping of the whole thing in relation to this rectangle. You know, and what would it have, what would it mean if this was closer here, maybe, or maybe out longer, or, all of those kinds of considerations. This. Right now, the way it's placed, it's fairly in the middle. I mean, not exactly. This is a little bit bigger than that, but it's pretty frontal and centered, which makes it kind of like an icon, like Byzantine icons, a kind of frontality. I think Redon did that, right? Odilon Redon, sort of this kind of floating flower thing. Oh, whoa, it's over here. Oh. Yeah, here. Different. Let's see. Here. Also, this kind of jumping around thing I'm doing, this kind of bopping. I mean, that's just the way I'm drawing, right? Everyone has their own pace, their own touch, their own pressure. So draw in a way that feels comfortable. Yeah, a little bit. You see? You know, another thing that I find that happens as I work is my sense, my acuity, seeing gets stronger as I work. In other words, like oh, I didn't see that when I first started. I just, you know, things sharpen and clarify. I mean, up to a point, you know, if I get tired, it starts to go down. But, you know, and so where I think, you know, something is, it turns out that over time, it's like, oh, no, I didn't see that correctly. Yeah, I change it. Or not. I mean, if it seems to actually be a better composition, maybe you'll leave it, but it has to be convincing to you. You have to believe in the situation, even if it's a distortion. Like, let's say things are distorted, but then it's distorted and it feels like there's a rightness to the distortion, not, well, I don't really want to change it, or I don't know how to change it. It has to be a meaningful distortion, meaningful in a visual way. You know, look at Matisse or Soutine or, you know, Cézanne, actually even Titian. You know, all kinds of things get distorted. There we go. Well, I can see here from the feed. Yeah, it's coming along. Okay. You can see it. That's good to know. You know, another thing that's happening just inadvertently, that I don't know if you can see it over there. My pinky is, I'm slightly resting on my pinky as I draw, so I'm not putting all the pressure on the pencil point. But it ends up kind of dragging, which has its own, I don't know, thing. It's kind of interesting accidental thing. Sometimes I'll leave it, sometimes I erase it, sometimes, you know, I just kind of work with it. So I want to find this stuff, and I was coming down this way, and now I stopped, I put it on pause, and I came back to here, and now I'm going up this way, just to find where things are from another direction. It helps to kind of show me my blind spots, I guess. Get in there. Gotta be nice if the flowers lasted long enough. We could, like for the 4 weeks, wouldn't that be great? Go through it with this bouquet. I'd love that. Oh well. I think that's why Cezanne had wooden fruit. If I got that right. A lot of those apples or whatever, I remember reading somewhere. They just rot if they were real. You painted so slowly. Well, you know, like putting something down here, well, that makes a big difference in just in terms of the whole dynamic of the composition of the rectangle and how our eyes move through. I mean, and you saw when I threw it, I mean, I didn't know I was going to do that, right? And it's like, oh, that's nice. You know, and sometimes when we set it up, you know, something will fall or whatever. Oh, it's nice. Oh, we got a thing over here too. Oh, we got all this, all that complicated stuff. You know, sometimes what ends up happening is like, we look at an area of something and it's like, oh my gosh, it's daunting. And, you know, like our minds will do like a little quiet freak out, like, I can't, I'm not. And if it's there, you know, depending how you're working, but you want to attend to it specifically as it is. Even if you don't do all of it, but whatever part of it you do draw or paint needs specific attention. We can't like do it and kind of like fake it as we kind of like fill in. That doesn't work. You don't necessarily need to do like every detail of it, but whatever we do put down needs to be done with specific engagement. Pattern, you know, like looking at that hydrangea, right? It's like, whoa, dude, really? I'm gonna do every one of these little things? No way, right? Or whatever the reaction might be. But it's like, well, whatever I do, maybe I don't do every little circle, but whatever I do mark needs to be done, not generically, not in some generalized, inattentive way. It needs to be done with attention, even if I don't do every part of it. Because really what's happening, the drawing or the painting is it's like an embodiment of our attention, of our engagement, right? And it shows up if we're not really attentive when we're working, you know, it's like, oh, it's like not really there in that area. We got some chats. Let's see, what do we got? Sure. How close am I to the set? Yeah, let's go to the, I'll show you. I'll give you a setup. I mean, I'll give you a close-up. Try putting them in the refrigerator. Yeah, I don't have a refrigerator like that has that kind of space. That would be great. Here, let me give you a. Oops, I want to get that out of the way so you can see. Yeah, you see it's getting too bright on that. Oh gosh, on the feed. But you see, it's all that white is getting a little bit washed out. It isn't that bright in here. The Zoom feed is compensating and making it more contrast than it actually has and brighter. It's nice and soft. I'm gonna inquire with Zoom and see if there's a way to change the the kind of feed in terms of the definition. I think there might be. Let's see. Here we go. What else? What other questions? Wait a minute. Artificial flowers will last. Yes, this is true. But I really liked the real stuff and the way the flowers fade and wilt and change. I like that. I mean, people look at my stuff that I keep around, it's like, oh, those are the dead flowers. And I just think of them as dried flowers. And I just find it, the whole thing beautiful. Could you talk through, I have the tendency to generalize the daunting areas. Yeah, you're not alone. Could you talk through attending to something like the hydrangea by being selective but specific? Sure, I'll do it. We'll go there. We'll go there in a minute. This is so much. Yeah, sweet. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. You know, that close up, it was okay, but I mean, you couldn't. I'll try to. You know what? I'm gonna. Even my phone, it compensates poorly. So I'm gonna take a picture and put it into the video and the email that I send out to you. And see if I can get a better, oh, that's not bad. But then it, come on. That's better. That's better. And I'll take out all, it like hypes the saturation too. It's kind of nutty. And then, so we'll get that to you so you can see as you go back through the video, you'll have a decent image to work with. Yeah. Oh, totally, Wabi Sabi. Yeah, faded. Yeah, fading flowers. Yep. Okay. Okay, I'll go back to this now. So. All right. Before I go back up to the hydrangea, I need to put, this is all blank. So I'm going to put stuff in here. And it really is fairly complicated in here as well. And then we'll go up to the hydrangea. Let's see. So here, and I've got this, and I've got this, and then I've got this, and then here. That's a little higher. And then up here, this is higher. This is, where am I? Where am I? You know, often also, you know, one of the things, whether it's landscape or a complex still life like this or something, am I in here? You see all the, see, there we go. That's a little, there we go. I think we're all there. You know, yeah, you know, you get lost. It's like, oh, that's complicated. Where was I? And then you just, you know, you find your point again, and you start again, and you go through it. And as long as, you know, if I'm not in a hurry, then fine. Just sort of enjoy the ride. I mean, that's what we're doing anyway, right? And that's part of the pleasure of drawing and painting, is it lives, the activity occurs in such a different temporal rhythm than the rest of our world. Thank God. You know, doesn't happen fast. And it's like a truly resistant activity. It really does counter the frenetic pace of our culture, the frenetic pace of the news. I don't know if you guys are keeping up on stuff. It's just mind-blowing. It exercises our being in a different way than so much else that happens today. And there is, you know, it's not just a creative activity in that sense. It's a spiritual activity. It's a political activity. It's a cultural activity, you know. And that's, for me, really important about the whole thing. Even if it's just flowers, you know. Oh, that's a different angle over here. I didn't see that quite right. Here, up here, 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 here. I see I'm back over here. La 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 la. Where am I? It's true, right? It's like, I don't know, what? Where? What's going on? This is here. I guess this is literally getting into the weeds, although maybe it's leaves. Oh, it's up here, and it's over here, and it's up that way, and then over here, and then here. Okay, and then let's see. Daunting, this hydrangea. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm just trying to, let's see, what am I doing? I'm looking for the larger sort of rhythms, sort of subdividing in a sense. Like there's this little, oh, you probably can't see from the view, maybe there's this little shadow in here, and this is a little darker here. So looking at the different larger kind of shapes within this, you know, just like we would do, like, you know, understanding the structure of a head or you know, a chest or whatever. So what's the structure of these shapes? So what do we got? We've got, let's see, this is here. I've got this coming in here, and this, let's see, this is about here, this is here. And I've got this movement over here, and this is, let's see, this comes up that way. So the carnation is a little bigger here. So what's happening right now is, after I kind of laid in more or less all of this, I'm not stopping my figuring it out. I'm just, things are more or less where they are, but oh no, the carnation doesn't go here, it goes here, the edge of it, as it comes up against the hydrangea. Oh, so I just keep on exercising the specific inquiry because I'm curious, I'm interested, and I like to draw. It's like, oh, okay. So let's see. This is, come back to here. This is my rose petal. Back to my leaf. And then I've got that, and I've got this thing here, and then it's going up here. So I've got two different possibilities. I'm not sure what's going on. This is here, 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 here. Okay, okay. And then this comes up this way, and then up to there. Here, here, okay. And then this is there, okay. And then there's this little cup. This little cup. Okay. And I've got, excuse me, this little guy. And this guy. So I'm really just, wherever I'm landing my eye, I'm just, staying there and staying on it and looking at that specific little cup, and then another one, another one. And I'm not letting myself get overwhelmed by it. I'm just thinking, I kind of structured this out more or less so that I understand the proportions and where is this darker shape, and I'm just going back and forth, and okay, right next to it there's one over here. There's this space over here. Okay. If I want, I'll stop, or I'll just, so it's not like I need to finish the hydrangea and all these little guys before going on. It's like, well, I'm done for now. I'm going to go on to something else. That's fine. It's not a task. It's drawing. It's different. It's curiosity. Also, you can see my mark. I'm making decisive marks. But you could make real delicate marks. You can make. Really. What matters is that when you mark, you are really in your mark. And so, if it's a delicate mark, you're really being delicate. If you're making a darker mark, you're being decisive. Okay, so however it shows up for you. What's crucial is just the sense of being present when we're working. And if you find it's like, oh, my attention's lagging, flagging, yeah, take a break. Have a cup of coffee. One chat since we've got. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Yeah. Yeah, we don't often get like what's going on in someone's head when they're making. how does this work? And it's like, it's surprising. It's like, oh, like reading about Matisse, that he was an insomniac and suffered from anxiety. It's like, oh. It's like, oh, okay, well, there you go. What? You got one? Yeah. When I was in grad school, I was asking one of my teachers, Andrew Forge, for things to read. What would be good? And I think it was the first thing he suggested was Cézanne's letters. Well, I think I missed a lot. I read them, or some of them, but I don't think I really understood a lot of, or exactly why he thought I should read them. I don't know. But one thing I really did get was that Cézanne was a guy. He was just a guy. He was an amazing painter and what he was doing, but still, he was a guy. It's like, oh, this is ours as people. We tend to think of like all these masterpieces and all this stuff, in the museums and the history and all that. It's just made by people. And it's like, oh, I'm a person. I just have to show up and really be present and work and okay, let's see what happens. Oh, really? This goes down here. That's it. Okay. Here. Oh, well, that is there. This is here. Dang. This is here. This is here. This is okay. Okay. Here. Makes me think I should go back to Cézanne's letters and read them again. I don't think I've looked at it since, but that'll be good to do, actually. They're quoted all the time. And he's not necessarily consistent in his painting from what he says in his letters or quoted or whatever, but they're interesting. Here. And what was happening with the hydrangea, Leslie? It's the here I am with all these petals. It's like, whoa, look at all these petals. Well, literally one petal at a time. And what's the angle? And what is it doing? And it's doing this. Okay. Oh, what happened? What happened? This is here. This is here. Here. you know, and then in this curious way, the looking for, I'm just looking for one thing and then another thing. I'm just trying to figure it out, right? I'm just looking for the geometry and the proportion and the angle. Really, that's all I'm doing. Just try to through the proportion and the angle, and I guess the line quality. I'm trying to figure out these forms and how the forms are coming together. That's the bouquet. And breaking it down into real specific questions of geometry again and again and again. And I change it. If it's not right, I keep changing it and I'm looking for it. And the activity of looking for it, that's what ends up making it interesting. You know, it's like, wow. Because then the marking is actually awake and an invitation. And we want to do that when we go to paint, of course, as well. It just gets complex. There's just all these moving parts to the whole deal. Yeah, it's getting interesting, you know. It's like, oh, look, something's happening. You know, we're just busy doing one step after another, and eventually something starts to happen on its own, in a way, you know, curiously. I'm just asking little questions, and then they accumulate. And so, you know, okay, so I'm asking specific questions about geometry and form. But another, I guess, thing to keep in the equation is where do I ask next? Like, okay, when I was over by, you know, the hydrangea, at some point I let it go and I came over here. Well, why did I do that? Well, my interest seemed to be flagging. Okay, but also I'm, you know, I'm trying to, and this doesn't have to be this way, but I'm trying to structure and bring up, you know, and so I'm, you know, like composing my attention throughout. You can just start somewhere and just stay and just draw across, and just, that's fine too. It's different. It's more like a study. This is more like composing the structure of the whole thing. It's a different kind of attitude, which is a little more Cézannian, actually. But you know, it's something.
Gordon?
Yeah.
It's Leslie. Can I ask a question? It's related to that.
Yeah.
Several of my teachers in drawing sort of emphasize the issue of selectivity.
Yes.
How important that is, and that if you're doing something like this, you may select things to develop and deliberately not. And I wonder if you tend to do that. I mean, I find that very interesting, and how you would, you know, think through that with a big, complex bouquet like this. Like maybe not develop every flower,
yes,
but like follow your curiosity.
Yes, following your curiosity, and I'm composing my attention to hold this, so that, I mean, but you know, everyone would be doing that in a different way. It's like, okay, so maybe after this, I want to do something over here to bring me back out, or over here, or over here. So maybe not all of it gets right. So it's all
Okay.
yeah. You know, notions of selectivity, notions of specificity versus simplification. Now, simplification doesn't mean generalization. It means simplifying to get enough of what I need for this image. So I stay specific when I'm simplifying, but I'm simplifying because that's maybe even if I want to, maybe I'm a, you know, what we refer to as a realist. And so there's going to be enormous detail. But that detail has to be built on foundational forms which are simplified. And then we build into the detail. So how do I simplify? How do I select where to put more attention or detail, or how does all, right? And yeah, I mean, those are things really, I guess that's yes, that's in keeping with what I'm trying to refer to. So there are the foundational skills of you know, of geometry that have to do with proportion and angle, edge quality or line quality if it's I'm just drawing, and with line. And but then there are, well, how does one work that? So notions of selectivity, of simplification, of detail versus simple, attention, and how am I, rhythm, how am I moving through and around? And a lot of that has to do with intention. That is, what's the intention of this endeavor, this drawing? You know, is it a study? Or is it maybe I'm taking on something that is more akin to painting and I'm composing throughout this rectangle, which is the way I've been talking about this, by the way, right? I'm composing in a way that I would if I was painting. So making a painting is come to affect the way I'm drawing, as opposed to just, you know, you sit down and you got your paper and your pencil and you're just drawing and grooving, and it's just study far out. So those are two very different kinds of intentions. And where that study happens to take place on the rectangle is willy-nilly. It doesn't matter. So all of that comes into play. And I want, you know, it's not only that I want to, that I treat this compositionally the way I would a painting, because that's the way I've been working, but also in terms for us here pedagogically, in terms of going through, you know, and kind of how to think about the flower still life. I want to bring in from the get-go compositional concerns, because they're crucial when we make a painting.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. What would it mean if, you know, like all of this was softer and then this was like really worked? That would be a selective, you know, intention, put it, you know, really get, you know, yeah, for sure. And we don't have, is it really 11:20 already? Jeez Louise. Okay. Hey, I want to keep drawing. All right. Other questions right now? We got some chats here. Let me see. Great. Okay. So maybe I'll, you know, so we've got, just in terms of what we're talking about right now, we've got this sort of thing happening. I want to bring up through here, just for the sense of rhythm, and through here, like I'm thinking about how do I want to create a rhythm of movement through this whole thing. So that brings that selectivity, where I want to pay attention, attending to different areas as a way of composing the image. Yeah, you know, if any of you out there have a specific question you want to ask that's pertinent to what I'm doing, feel free to unmute and ask out loud like Leslie just did. That's fine. I mean, if we get too much, we'll have to figure it out. But right now, no problem.
Jordan, this is Laurel speaking.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt. I just realized
Yeah.
a bunch of us seem to be very curious about how you keep your pencil point on the paper seemingly all the time. And I just realized what it does for me in watching that. And it helps you keep your place, it looks like, because when you're moving your eyes back and forth from the bouquet to the paper, and I can see now that personally it would help me immensely to not lose my place of where I am.
Well, yeah, what would you do?
Well, I tend to be I don't know, more I guess ADD in my painting, in that I'm all over the place a lot of the time. And when it comes to the specificity and intention,
Yeah.
particularly with flowers, which I have a terrible time doing that, I can see that this technique of keeping your point on the paper most of the time is a good mechanism to sort of train yourself to keep your place, you know, so that you're not losing your place as your eye goes back and forth. It's very interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's helpful that way for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, well, great. But it does tend to make the paper a little smeary from my hand.
Adds to the
Yeah.
mood.
Yes. The bona fide. Starting. It's nice. You know, that's also part of it. It's like, takes a while for the image to get some momentum. I mean, that's why I was surprised by the time. You know, in terms of the session now, because it just takes time for the marking and the engagement to start to begin to coalesce into an image that starts to have some visual heft, you know. And while we go through that, or while it's trying to gather momentum, it's important to just keep faith, like, you know, don't get too judgmental about it. It's irrelevant. It's like, just stay in there and just keep on being engaged and enjoying it. It's like, think of it like, you know, going for a hike. and we're, we know we're in the middle. We don't need to, wonder, God, when am I going to get to the top? I mean, we can, but just enjoy the, and then we look back and, oh, we've gone quite, and so it takes time. And it's important to just kind of let that be what it is, and not to rush that, not to worry it. And then it starts, and then it's like, oh, something's happening. Cool. And it is. I mean, a lot of the time there's an aspect of faith in that. I mean, like, I don't mean like ideological faith. I mean, just, hanging in, keeping it together. John Berger writes about that notion in this great essay, A Professional Secret, in his collection of essays in a book called Keeping a Rendezvous. If you're not familiar with John Berger's writing, I highly recommend reading him. He's known mostly for Ways of Seeing, but God, he's written all kinds of stuff, and he's just fabulous. Berger. He passed away a few years ago now, which is very sad. He was something. Oh, so now as I'm looking at this, this feels a little blank. Like, oh, what? I need something in there. Just stepping back and looking at it, it's like, oh, particularly I think, in relation to these forms, it's like, oh, all right. Also, let me say, I can see that there's something about just the working of it that gets interesting for me. And to that extent, it's like, oh, so all of this like reworking and trying to figure it out, that's actually adding to the quality of the drawing. So it's not like, oh, I made a mistake, I have to correct it. It's more like, oh, I get to enrich the drawing by looking for it again. So the process becomes just the way of making a stronger image. The process and the product, I mean, they're really inseparable. Really, really. And it's not like I'm more concerned with process and the product will just take care of itself. No, I want it to be a strong looking image. But it all goes together. God, it'd be nice to paint this carnation. It's so beautiful. All these whites. It's important to have a good sharpener, really. Not just saying that. A lot of the time people have these like crappy sharpeners and they break and they don't sharpen, and it's like, no, get a good one. And then when it gets dull, get another one, or buy 5 of them. And I mean, unless you work well with a dull point, which is possible, truly. Look at some chats here. Cool. Keeping my pencil on the paper. Yeah, or you asked. Oh, well. Oh, again, talk about it. Mapping the shapes merely shows the artist's hand. Yes, I'm mapping the shapes. Yes, and the technique of keeping my pencil on the paper for a long time. So I'm just trying to find out where things are. Here I am. This is the edge of that little petal, and I just stay there. And then I look back, and I'm just here. I mean, if I just slow it down, it's just just keeping it there where my eye is, and then coming over to where this is, and then coming over, seeing that angle, and I'm just leaving my pencil there. I'm just not picking it up as I look and kind of assess. I can, and know where that is. Okay, I'm there. This is where I am next to, on that purple one. Okay, and then I kind of go and I look, fine, and then I come back to it and go back to where I left off. It's just a way of staying engaged with the drawing of it. And here, compositionally, I want to pull some of this out. So what are we doing? We got, so here. It's pretty, huh? Okay. Man, flowers, they're just so beautiful. It's windy. If you can hear it. By the way, I ended up picking up, to put this together. I ended up, when I went to the store, I mean, unless you've got your garden, getting like 3 different bouquets, just so that I could actually choose for myself how it was all going to work. So I've got a bunch of leftover flowers over there, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't just, I'm not interested in, I mean, sometimes the way the stores put their bouquets together, they're nice, but a lot of the time it's kind of generic. It's not really my thing. So I'll get enough material that I can put together a bouquet that, you know, really works for me. I mean, it's not so different than, you know, I don't particularly like the 3x4 proportion of a rectangle, like 18 by 24, 9 by 12 inch or whatever. And I tend to go more towards a square. But, you know, so I don't buy most of the store-made, you know, store-bought canvases or paper. It's not a proportion that works for me. So, you know, I'll get a bunch of flowers and then I'll make my own deal. I mean, that's really key, you know, in everything. You know, one of the aspects of being a creative maker is it's really all up to us. I mean, we are the authority, and we need to figure out what that entails. Like, well, how do I want to do this, and with what materials, and what's my subject matter, and I mean, all of it. And that's both, you know, wonderful and thrilling and daunting and scary. And I mean, it's all of it. And it's a challenge to really take that on and to really listen to ourselves as we work. And it's like, is this fully true? Can I clarify it more in terms of my own actual sensibility? What's my way of doing this? Not to be original or famous or new, you know, in terms of the outer world out there, but just in terms of to be as fully engaged in my activity as possible. Yeah, we don't need to worry if we're doing something new. Our world. Ah, something wrong. What's going on? So again, here, you know, I'm using the eraser as a drawing tool. Excuse me, more coffee. It's been on for a while. It's probably a little cooked right now. Yeah. Let's see, we got some chats here. Yeah, Yeah, right? It is. It's a great excuse for buying lots of fresh flowers. Absolutely. That's yes. And then if I get the painting or drawing done in time, I get to take it home. Or if there's leftover flowers that don't get
Yeah,
into
the leftovers. The leftovers go in the house.
Totally. Absolutely. It's all a tax write-off. Cyclamen, beautiful. Am I looking for values? No, I'm really not. I mean, I'm aware of them. This is darker. Certainly if I get into black and white or color or tone, yes. But right now, I'm really just looking for structure. I mean, that's me. That's just my deal. You know, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty charcoal and graphite just drawing, and they're really laying it in with value as well, for sure. So, but I'm not. I'm just looking at the structure both of this form, but also how it's holding the rectangle. Yes, yes, dry flowers are wonderful to work with. I love them. Yes, I love them. Yep. Cool. And then here, right, this is like a blank spot. It's like, oh, it's not, what is that? So, okay, let's see. I want to go in there and like explore, well, what's showing up in my world here? You guys can see, yeah. Yeah, it's like a really interesting jigsaw puzzle. And I'm just trying to figure out how all the shapes fit in to each other, and and just how all the shapes fit with each other. And yeah. It's fun. It's a puzzle. Because here it is. It all works. It's like all those shapes fit because there it is. And it's like, okay, how can I figure out how that all works? I don't know. But clearly it does. There it is. It's all there. Ashok, you asked, I think I'm saying your name correctly. I hope, correct me if I'm wrong, but about value. And I'm not looking for value, but what is occurring is when there is a strong contrast, the edges of things are crisper. And when there is less contrast in value, it's a softer edge. So that is definitely affecting my sense of form and line quality. So where I really can see, that leaf, because there's a big strong difference in value, and then how do I attend, like this is really showing up, this edge here, and that gives me a sense of the form, right? So I'm not going directly to value, but value is certainly coming into play in terms of contrast, less contrast, and how that gives me a sense of the structure. And that will affect my mark, my line. Also, I want to say something about drawing in general. It's really been an important part of my practice. I wouldn't be the painter I am today without drawing, and not just because of the skill of drawing, but because of the engagement of drawing gives me a way to get to know my own sensibility, my own temperament, in a way that's a little more direct, actually, than painting. I build on it in painting, but it feels like there's less at stake with drawing. I get to know my own rhythm, my own way of marking, my own interest through drawing. And drawing over the years has really led my practice. Experimenting, exploring different interests. And when I was in grad school, and I would have teachers, and they would almost invariably, they would say, you need to draw more. And I bet they said it to everybody, right? Maybe there were a few actually that were drawing, and I was like, no, man, I got to paint. And that was the real thing. And after grad school, I started to draw more on my own. And yeah, drawing's really important.
So Jordan, it's Leslie.
Yeah.
Along those lines, have you learned things in this drawing that I assume you're gonna paint this, but I don't know, maybe you have to paint another bouquet.
I mean, this week, maybe. I hope so. It's so beautiful.
But are you saying that through this, you kind of learn what you're most interested in there, or how you would approach it, or?
I've learned how I like to mark. I mean, like over decades. I've learned, sure, in each specific, if I draw, but I'm not doing this as a preparation for a painting. If I draw a motif and then end up painting it, that drawing has enriched my relationship with the motif. It's created a more intimate relationship with the motif. But I don't really think of it so much as a preparatory study for the painting. Drawing has given me access to what am I interested in general. How do I like to mark? My pressure, things about rhythm, about my temperament as a painter. I've learned more clearly through drawing. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I guess I was saying,
For this?
not that this is a study preparatory to a painting, but do you draw things before you paint them in order to find out? Well, I guess what you said, I get to know this. Like, do you need to draw before painting in order to get to know that motif?
Sometimes I do that, but not usually in order to get information that will be useful in the painting. More like just developing a rapport. You know, just hanging out with it so that when I paint, there's just more of a sense of intimacy.
Okay, thank you.
How are we doing time-wise? Oh, here we are. Okay. Let me check the chat, and then we'll open it up before we wrap up. Great. Oh, good. I'm glad, Patricia, that that's helpful. Okay. How much time should we spend on a drawing? How much time should we spend on a drawing? It depends on your interest. You know, if you're making a painting, then, right, as you set it up, you need to draw in order to get the structure of the situation believable and composed and convincing. So there's that aspect when we set up a painting, so however long it takes you. But if you're just drawing like you know, as a way of getting to know the motif, or you know, responding and building up a rapport and intimacy. Oh, you mean for this week though?
Yeah, for this week. So should we give ourselves like a time limit of like, okay, I'm going to work on this for 2 hours, or should we just work on it till we're done?
Exercise, yes. For this week, draw a not too complicated still life of flowers for a couple hours. Okay. Or it could be 2 1-hour sessions of 2 different little still lifes of a little place. 2 hours can be tiring, so you might find after an hour you're just, you know, you need to stop. If you're drawing or painting and you find that your attention is really, you're not there, stop. I mean, I can't tell you, I remember so clearly, like, learning to paint and realizing, oh my God, for the last half hour, I wasn't really paying attention. And I kind of realized, oh, I just put on lots of dead material that I have to get back through now. I created obstacles for myself now in a not nice way. So if you realize you're not paying attention, just stop. That's fine. And so maybe 2 1-hour sessions. Something like that, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Mark. Well, okay. I think we're there. We're wrapping up. So this was a great first day. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you through chat and your questions, unmuting and going through this with you. And this is being recorded, and I will edit and upload it in the next few days and send out a link for everybody. Next week, I'll be doing, it probably won't be back this setup, but black and white in oils. Feel free to post your work on the Facebook members only page. If you aren't a member yet, you'll need to request, and I don't always get the notification, so I'll keep checking and then approve all of the requests. And so you can go and post up on Facebook. You don't have to post on Facebook, no worries. You know, I'm not sure what I think about Facebook actually, but it's helpful for us right now. And you're welcome to also just to send your JPEG images to me through email. That's fine, or not at all. Any of it, whatever works for you is fine. What else? We got a bunch of quick chats here. You're very welcome. A pleasure. Cool. All right. Okay, everybody. You all take care. Stay well. Stay healthy. Stay sane. And see you next week. Bye-bye.